Hi everyone and welcome to this drawing video. In this video I want to show you how to draw a cave. In terms of the materials, I used an HB mechanical pencil along with regular 4B and 6B pencils. For the paper I was using smooth Bristol board, and then I was also using blending sticks along with a Tombow Mono Zero eraser and a larger eraser. But please don't worry too much about the equipment. As long as you have any pencils and any paper in front of you, you'll be able to create something similar to this. I started off by sketching the outlines of the cave, starting with the inside first and then proceeding to add the layers towards the outside, also defining more shape as the layers get closer, adding the individual shapes of the rocks. Then around the outer edges of the cave I started adding some much larger rocks that actually defined the cave's entrance. When you're working on rocks like this, it's a good idea to make them all different random shapes and sizes, much like they would be in nature. Don't worry too much about their shape and don't overthink the process. I recommend to have a light grip on the pencil and just roughly sketch the lines, and take your time and develop the layout of the scene. After that, I also sketched some hills and trees in the background. In terms of the shading, I started off by adding some extremely dark shading at the centre of the cave, using a regular 6B pencil for this. Then I continued adding shading to each of the layers of the cave, working outwards from the centre, making sure to add the extremely dark shading in between each of the layers to add more depth, and this really helps to make the drawing look more 3D. I was also using the blending sticks to smooth this dark shading at the centre. If you don't have blending sticks, you can make use of a brush or cotton buds or even your finger. Any of those will work absolutely fine. When I reached the closer layers of the cave, where I wanted to define the individual rocks, I started by adding darker streaks of shading to the rocks first, along with some mid-tone, and then I blended over the top of that with blending sticks. In this drawing I wanted to imagine that the light source was coming from the left, so I wanted to add some highlighting along the left edges of the rocks, and for this I used the small eraser. For the largest rocks around the outside, I began by blocking in some rough shading first with my 6B pencil, adding darker layers around the right side, and then I used the blending stick over the top of this. After that, I continued to refine the details, sharpening some of the edges using the sharp lead of my HB mechanical pencil, and also continuing to use the small eraser to add highlights. When you're working on these rocks, it's also important not to add any dark outlines, especially around the highlighted side, as you'll never see any dark outlines like this in the real world. With the cave completed, I started adding some grass in the foreground, and for this I held my 6B pencil flat against the page and roughly added a layer of shading. I made sure to add much darker shading underneath the rocks, always thinking about the light source. And then I used a blending stick over the top of this shading to keep it nice and smooth. After that, I wanted to define some shapes in the area, some rocks and some grass, and I did this by using my mechanical pencil and the small eraser. For the last part of this drawing, that being the background, I started with the furthest hill first, adding some light shading with an HB pencil and then blending it. And I also wanted to add a layer of mist in front of this, and an easy way to create mist is to use a large eraser and just tap away at the shading. For the hills in front of that, I used the same shading technique, but I used a 4B pencil, making this layer a bit darker as it's closer to the foreground. On this same layer, I blended some dark shading upwards from the cave, and then to create the effect that the grass is hanging over the edge, I used the small eraser. And after that, this drawing was completed. This is such a fun and relaxing drawing to work on. I'm always happy to work on this kind of stuff, and I hope this video has helped out in some way. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and also let me know if you have any suggestions for future drawing videos. If you want to see more videos like this, then make sure you're subscribed, and any likes or shares on this video, they really mean a lot to me. If you'd like to follow my progress and see progress photos before I post these videos, then check out the links in the description box below to check out my Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And once again, thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much for watching. I really hope this helps out, and I hope you're having an awesome day, and I'll see you all soon.